Things are really starting to heat right up in Pokemon Horizons, with the recent events of Liko Sprigatito being taken hostage by Amethio and the Explorers. A new episode preview and a special trailer have been dropped for the next episodes in the series. This includes the dangerous rescue mission to save Sprigatito, the official meeting of our protagonists Liko and Roy, and lastly, an encounter with the legendary Pokemon of the sky, Rayquaza. Why is it here? Well, everyone, together, let's break down all of this new crucial information. Starting us off, we have Pokemon Horizons Episode 3's preview. The title is, As Long As I'm With Sprigatito, I'm Sure. It will air on the 21st of April. We open up continuing our story from episode 2. Amethio and Friede's second battle has ended in a tie due to the Rising Voltacular's ship going through a major storm. This led for Liko Sprigatito being kidnapped by the Explorers. We are first shown Liko waking up in one of the ship's rooms. This room seems to be in a bit of a mess, as we can see work papers and mechanic tools everywhere, making me believe it's just an unused room. The focus shifts back to Liko's face, who shows determination. This is because she knows today's the day she must rescue her starter Pokemon. And I absolutely love this shot, as it's one of Liko's first big steps in her story to greatness. Next, we see some of the Rising Voltaculars, Friede, Orla, Mollie and Murdock doing their signature crew handshake, which I actually think is very cool. My assumption is they're gonna do this right before heading into their big mission to save Sprigatito. In our next shot, we see Amethio, Conia and Sprigatito in what looks to be a random warehouse. Sprigatito looks unharmed and pretty fine. However, it seems like Amethio and Conia are the ones who are a little bit worried about something. I think it's because they are behind schedule of failing to retrieve the pendant easily, as they did not expect Friede and the Rising Voltaculars to be involved in all of this, meaning they're gonna have to find another way in retrieving the pendant. You can tell that the Explorers are villains, but they're not just going to harm a Pokemon for the sake of harming a Pokemon. Why I say this is that in episode 2, when Ceruledge's attack bounced off into the cabin where the crew's Pokemon were kept, Amethio along with Friede were both concerned. Also, Sprigatito is obviously unharmed. So, whatever the ultimate goal is, it definitely isn't about capturing or hurting random Pokemon, which is why I think they're going to use Liko Sprigatito as bait. The preview then cuts to a town setting where we see Liko, Friede, Captain Pikachu and Murdock's Rockruff chasing after a lady. This lady happens to be Conia dressed up in disguise. She's clearly under a lot of stress as she's running away, also speaking to someone on her Rotom phone. At first I thought, oh, Liko and Friede just happened to randomly find Conia dressed up in town doing something on her own personal business, pretty much just catching her lacking. However, this isn't old Pokemon, as if Ash was here, he would be oblivious to noticing that that was Conia. However, this is Pokemon Horizons, so Liko and Friede clearly have noticed that this is the same person they've seen before, which makes me believe that nope, this wasn't a coincidence, but in fact Amethio sent Conia as bait to lure Friede and Liko to the warehouse, because with them having Sprigatito, they know they will definitely come. And it also explains why Conia would be on the phone, because she would be telling Amethio that they are following her, all going according to plan. Also, I don't know about you, but I can't unsee the little similarities between Conia and Jessie. Alright, all of this nicely brings us to our next scene of Liko and Friede rushing into a dark warehouse. At the end of it is Amethio standing, who is revealed by the light. Liko and Friede are shown with Liko showing her necklace to Amethio, with a little bit of worry on her face. However, Friede is perfectly calm. It seems like Liko and Friede also have a big plan on their hands to be able to trick Amethio in getting Sprigatito back, but also keeping the pendant. It seems like peaceful negotiations aren't possible, because following this, a battle breaks out. Pikachu is shown using Double Team above Ceruledge, who we see Amethio commanding Ceruledge to get rid of the fakes. Yes everyone, we are indeed getting Amethio vs Friede Route 3. Let's go! I am so hyped for the third battle because the two of them are some of the best characters in the series, especially Amethio, who is my favorite character. Also, the animation looks clean as heck, and it looks like the 3D camera is also being used again from episode 2, which will be making a return for this battle. All of this just makes me so happy because it feels like we're getting X5 vibes all over again with the amazing battles it brought. I guess we will find out who will truly come out on top in round 3. As much as I think Friede will win it this time, I'm actually leaning towards Amethio, but maybe I'm just a little biased here. In our last shot of episode 3's preview, we see that Liko does in fact find Sprigatito, as she's crying with happiness while hugging her. It will be a very wholesome reunion. However, there's no chance with the explorers being serious villains that everything will go smoothly, which I cannot wait for this dangerous mission in episode 3. But that's not all, as the special preview gives us even further insight on what's going to come in episode 3 and a new one on episode 4, which as of right now, the title is currently unknown. The special preview opens with Sprigatito in the warehouse worried. We then see a shot of episode 3 preview of Liko having a flashback to the moment where she lost Sprigatito. The flashback fades to a new shot of Liko sitting down very worried if Sprigatito is safe. Following this, we see Liko speak to Mollie, Orla and Murdock. Ludlow is doing some fishing and Friede is flying around with his Charizard and Captain Pikachu. It seems like episode 3 is going to focus and establish the relationships between Liko and the Rising Volt tacklers, and also explain to us as the audience who they really are and what they do as a crew, which I'm very interested to see because they're all a bunch of cool people. We are then shown a wide shot of the airship by a warehouse harbour. Murdock gets out his Rockruff and like before, the crew do their handshake. This further explains this scene as it's definitely going to happen after they come up with a plan to find Sprigatito. Orla, Pwami, Fuecoco and Elekid are shown inside some sort of room, and Elekid is powered up to an electric source that opens up a massive roof. We cut back to Liko with the others at the harbour, where she's a little worried at first but toughens up before the big mission. The preview then shows us a completely different warehouse location, where Sprigatito is being kept by the explorers. Amethio is shown talking about Liko's pendant and how he desperately needs it. After this, a strange looking room with a ton of technology is shown. Inside, we see Zir, Amethio and Ceruledge and Conia discussing about Liko's pendant and its importance. I'm sure this episode will be the one we find out more about the explorers' backstory and maybe even their ultimate goal. I assume this could be where their base is located in the warehouses. However, it could be an entirely new location. Zir is afterwards shown throwing a device onto the Rising Volt tackler's ship. This device looks to be a tracking detector, which makes me believe we won't see Amethio and the explorers against the Rising Volt tacklers for a few episodes, as they're going to be able to track everywhere they go, even if they fail to get Liko's pendant in this episode, which is very clever of Amethio. Outside the warehouse where Sprigatito is captive, we see Friede putting his hand on Liko's shoulder, giving her a pep talk to trust him that everything will be alright and she will be able to save her partner Pokemon. I can see Friede definitely taking the older brother role with Liko, really going to look out for her and also guiding or mentoring her in her decisions, like we see here. This is also how I expected Ash to be like if he was going to be in this new anime with Liko, taking up that mentor role. We go back to another shot of Zir hiding behind a pillar near the airship, trying not to be caught by Ludlow, who's doing some fishing. I assume this is right before he throws the device on it. After this, we see Amethio and Conia, and Amethio is preparing to go battle for the pendant as he knows that Friede will be coming. Speaking of Friede, we see Friede flying on his Charizard with Captain Pikachu again. The preview cuts to a scene which we saw back in episode 3's preview of Friede and Liko getting into the warehouse. This time we see Liko and Rockruff run to the left. So, I believe they're going to use Rockruff's good sense of smell to be able to help them find where Sprigatito is captive. While this happens, Friede battles Amethio. Following all of this, we see a scene of Amethio and Ceruledge battling outside of the warehouse. So, I assume that this battle manages to find its way outside too. It's definitely going to be a struggle to contain this one inside anyways. It's going to be one you do not want to miss. Finally, we get to see someone we have been wanting to see for some time now, and that's Roy. This part of the special preview focuses on what we'll see with Roy in episode 4. First things first, it looks as if Roy is actually going to be in Paldea from the water beach landscape, which is kind of funny as he's from Kanto and Liko is from Paldea but staying in Kanto. We next see him running down a massive hill with a big blue ocean ahead, and he does a little jump of excitement. I can already tell he's gonna have a ton of energy, which I'm sure will brighten up the screen. It's been a while coming, but we finally get to see Roy and Liko speaking to each other. Roy shows Liko his strange Pokeball, and he spins it on his finger. Now, I think this Pokeball will actually make a massive reveal in this episode, and I'll explain why later. A Fuecoco is then shown eating a bunch of berries. I assume this is the one that Roy will catch, and me, being his starter Pokemon, which I'm looking forward to seeing the pair of them blossom. Now, we next see Liko, who looks to be inside the airship, speaking to Quaxly, and by the foot, we also see she's speaking to Ludlow, who wears those type of sandals. I really wonder, is that Quaxly Ludlow's, as we also saw that Quaxly in episode 2? And if so, does that make him Nido thing? I mean, there's no way, right? Right? After all of this, we see a sequence of Roy looking around for something in a forest, Liko focusing on her pendant, and Roy focusing on his strange Pokeball while using his Rotom phone. Lastly, we see Liko and Roy both staring at a beautiful sunset. The focus of the mysteries behind the two of their special items is definitely going to be a lot of fun to witness as the story progresses. I truly hope they have a ton of depth in both of these items, as from what we've seen already, Liko is the protector of Terapagos, which is crazy. We continue another set of new sequence shots as we see Liko and Roy being shot by something, Liko using leafage at the warehouse, and Roy saving Friede Pokemon from something. Which brings us to one of the biggest scenes from the special preview. We see Shiny Rayquaza flying down from the sky, and it looks to also be terrestrialized. Earlier, I said that I think this episode will have a massive reveal in it. Well, my theory is that Roy might actually have Rayquaza in his strange Pokeball from the start, and by mistake, he lets it out of the Pokeball, not knowing that there's something inside. And right after that, we would see some sort of link between Liko's pendant and Rayquaza, causing it to have the Terra power. Now, my theory could be very off, and maybe Rayquaza just happened to be in the area. However, I think it being in the Pokeball would make a ton of sense, as Roy would have to find it again to return it back inside. But let's wait and see what happens. After a few more amazing shots of Liko, Roy sitting under a tree with Friede Pokemon, the Rising Volt Tackler's flag, and Friede and Charizard flying through a field, we see Liko this time join the Rising Volt Tacklers in their handshake, which makes me believe that she'll join them in episode 3 before we meet Roy, as she's wearing her school uniform. But regardless of which episode it happens, I think both of these characters joining the crew would be excellent, and I'm very sure it will happen. There is a ton of stuff they can learn from all of them, and so many adventures to go on with the crew. The special preview ends with one last scene, and that's the reveal of what looks to be the boss of the explorers, as we see an old man speaking to Amethio and Ceruledge, most likely in the strange building we saw in episode 3. But this man definitely has been the one constructing all of this, and truly knows why getting Liko's pendant is a must. I'm very intrigued to see what their ultimate goal is, and what is the connection between him and Amethio. Pokemon Horizons is looking amazing so far. I'm so excited for the mission to rescue Sprigatito. There's going to be a ton of focus for Liko and the Rising Volt Tackler's crew. Also, the animation looks absolutely fire for Amethio versus Friede, especially with that 3D camera once again. The meeting between Liko and Friede is also looking very awesome. I can't wait for the two to become friends, and I wonder why and how Shiny Rayquaza is even here. But I guess all of our questions will be answered very soon. What I've overall gathered from these two previews is that Liko will be the main focus for this arc of the anime, and Roy will most likely get the main focus in the next arc, because the first arc of Pokemon Horizons is Liko and Roy depart. As well as this, the new opening very much hints the focus on Liko being the main, which I'm very hyped for all of it. If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to give it a like and subscribe for all new future Pokemon anime related content, like my weekly videos on Pokemon Horizons.